And here we go. Do you think you can kick her ass, comrade? We're playing games right now. Actually, we're going to be doing more than that in a moment. No copyright infringement here. So nobody can't give me a world of crap. No one can give me nothing. Today, on this episode of this channel, we will not be talking about video games, right? We will not be talking about chicks with big racks. We're not going to talk about hot rods. Today, we are going to be continuing on with Watership Down. Who? As soon as I finish killing off this guy. Yeah, here we go. Stage cleared. Anyway, if you all remember in the last episode of Watership Down, this is chapter 25, more than likely a part 1, because this lousy camera phone or camera thing doesn't have enough juice to continue on throughout the entire chapter. So we're going to call this part 1. This is called The Raid on Watership Down. And here we go. As things turned out, Hazel and Pipkin did not come back to the honeycomb until the evening. They were still feeding in the field when it came on to rain with a cold wind, and they took shelter first in a nearby ditch, and then, since the ditch was on a slope and had a fair flow of rainwater in about 10 minutes. Among some sheds halfway down the lane, they burrowed into a thick pile of straw and for some time remained listening for rats. Okay, rats don't attack giant-sized freaking rabbits, okay? At least I never heard of it. Anyway, okay, let's get on with this. And, but all was quiet, and they grew drowsy and fell asleep, while outside the rain settled in the morning. And when they woke, it was mid-afternoon and it's still drizzling. It seems at Hazel that there was no particular hurry. The going was going to be troublesome in the wet, and anyway, no self-respecting rabbit would leave without a forage around the sheds. A pile of mangels and Swedes occupied them for some time. Mongols and Swedes? Was that a fucking motorcycle club? Wait a minute, let me double check. Mongols and Swedes occupied them for some time. They set out only when light was beginning to fade. Okay, I assume that's some sort of plan. All right, whatever. They took their time and reached the hangar a little before dark, with nothing worse to trouble them than discomfort of soaking wet fur. Only 2 or 3 rabbits were out on a rather subdued souffle in the wet. No one remarked on their absence, and Hazel went underground at once, telling Pipkin to say nothing about their adventure for the time being. He found his burrow empty and laid down and fell asleep. Waking, he found Fiver beside him as usual. It was some time before dawn. The earth floor felt pleasantly dry and snug. He was about to go back to sleep when Fiver spoke. "You've been wet through, Hazel." "Well, what about it? The grass is wet, you know." "You didn't get so wet on souffle. You were soaked. You haven't been here all yesterday, weren't you?" "Oh, I went foraging down the hill." "Eating swedes, and your feet smell of farmyard. Hens dropping some bran. But there's something other funny thing besides, but Something I can't smell. What happened? Well, I had a bit of a brush with a cat. But why the worry? It's because you're concealing something, Hazel. Something dangerous. It's Holly that's in danger, not I. Why bother me? Holly? Replied Fiber. But Holly and the others reached the big warren early yesterday evening. Tihar told us. Don't you mean to say you don't know? Hazel felt fairly caught out. Well, I know now, he replied. I'm glad to hear it. So it comes to this, said Fiber. You went to the farm yesterday and escaped from a cat. And whatever you were up to, it was so much on your mind you forgot to ask about Holly last night. Well, all right, Fiber, I'll tell you about it. I took Pipkin and we went to the farm that Kiara told us about where the rabbits in a hutch. I found the rabbits, talked to them, and I'd taken a notion to go back one night and get them out, to come and join us here. What for? More ass? Two of them are does? Well, two of them are does. That's what it's for. Oh, I just predicted that. Okay, I didn't even... Fuck it. Okay, screw it. Okay. But what if Holly's success will soon have plenty of does and all what we heard of hutch rabbits? They don't take easily to wildlife. The truth is, you're just a silly show-off. A silly show-off, said Hazel. Well, we'll just see whether Bigwig and Blackberry think so. Risking your life and other rabbits' lives for something that has little or no value to us, said Fiber. Oh, yes, of course the others will go with you. You're their chief rabbit, and you're supposed to decide what's sensible, and they trust you. Persuading them will prove nothing, but 3 or 4 dead rabbits will prove you're a fool when it's too late. Oh, be quiet, answered Hazel. I'm going to sleep. Shit, I would have cuffed the fuck out of it. Shut your fucking mouth. Fucking whore. Anyway, it can't go wrong. No. During the morning souffle next morning, Pipkin, for a respectful chorus, he told the others about his visit to the farm, and as he expected, Bigwig jumped at the idea of a raid to breed the hutch rabbits. It can't go wrong, he said. It's a splendid idea, Hazel. I don't know how you're going to open a hutch, but Blackberry will see to that. What annoys me is to think that you ran from a cat. A good rabbit's a mad for a cat any day. My mother went after one once, and she barely gave it something to remember. I can tell you, scratch its fur out like a willow herb in autumn. Just leave the farm cats to me and 1 or 2 others. Blackberry took a little bit more convincing, but he, like Bigwig and Hazel, secretly disappointed not to go on the expedition with Holly. And when the other 2 pointed out that they were relying on him to tell them how to get the hutch rabbits out, he agreed to come. Do we need to take everyone? He asked. Do you say the dogs had up? And I suppose there can't be more than 3 cats? Too many rabbits will only be a nuisance in the dark. Some will get lost and we'll sure have a splendid time looking for them. Well, Dandelion, Speedwell, and Hawkbit then, said Bigwig. And the others, Leave the others behind. Do you mean to go tonight, Hazel Raw? Bigwig said Hazel Raw for the first time. Wow. Times has changed, Hula. Yes, the sooner the better, said Hazel. Get a hold of those three and tell them. Pity it's going to be dark. We could have taken Kihar. He would have enjoyed it. However, their hopes for that night were disappointed, for the rain returned before dusk and settling in the northwest wind, carrying up the hill the sweet, sour smell of flowering sprivet from the cottage hedges below. Hazel sat on the bank until the light was quite faded. And at last, when it was clear the rain was going to stay for the night, he joined the others in the honeycomb. They had persuaded Kahar to come down out of the wind and the wet. And one of Dandelion's tales of El Ara had followed by an extraordinary story that left everyone mystified but fascinated. About the time when Frith had to go away on a journey, leaving the whole world covered with rain. But a man built a great floating hutch that held all the animals and birds until Frith returned and let them out. They even got their own version of Noah's Ark. Wow. Man, this guy, he's something. World War II guy, Richard Adams. Okay. It won't happen tonight, will it, Hazel Raw? Asked Pipkin, listening to the rain and the breaches and the outside. There's no hutch here. Kihar will fly up to the moon, Halaroo, says Bluebell. Then you can come down on Bigwood's head like a bird branch in the frost, and there'd be time to go to sleep first. Before Fiber slept, however, he talked to Hazel again about the raid. I suppose it's no good asking you not to go, he said. Look here, answered Hazel. Have you got one of your bad turns about the farm? ? If you have, why not say so straight out? Then we all know where we were. I got no feelings about the farm one way or another, said Fiber. But it does necessarily mean it's all right. Doesn't necessarily mean it's all right. Feelings come when they do. And it always comes. Not for the Lendre, not for the Crow, but it comes to that. I have no idea what's happened to Holly and the others. It might be good, might be bad. But there's something that frightens me about you yourself, Hazel. Just you, not like the others. You're all alone. Sharp, clear, like a dead branch against the sky. Seems like a lot of poetry here. And I used to take this book to the field when I was in the National Guard. Well, if you mean you can see trouble for me and not in the others, tell them and I'll leave it to them to decide whether or not I ought to keep out of it. But that's giving up a lot, Fiber, you know? Even with your word for it, someone's bound to think I'm afraid. Well, I say it's not worth the risk. Hazel, why not wait for Holly to come back and then we have to do? I'll be snared if I have to wait for Holly. Can't you see the very thing I want us to have these does here when they come back? But look, Fiber, I'll tell you what. I've come to trust you so much I'll take the greatest care. In fact, I won't even go into the farmyard myself. I'll stay outside the top of the lane. If that's not meeting your fears halfway, I don't know what is. Fiber said no more, and Hazel turned his thoughts to the raid. The difficulty he foresaw in getting the hutch rabbits to go the distance back to the warren. The next day was bright and dry with the fresh wind that cleared up what remained of the wet. The clouds came racing over the ridge from the south as they had in the May evening when Hazel first climbed the down. But now they are higher and smaller, settling at last into a small mackerel sky like a beach at low tide. Kids don't get that crap. They don't get it. I don't know what's with this guy. Is he trying to say that kids in England are smarter than everybody else on the fucking planet? They can recite poetry at the age of 9. Hazel took Bigwig and Blackberry to the edge of the escarpment, where they could look across the nut hanger on its little hill. He described the approach and went on to explain how the rabbit hutch was found. Bigwig was in high spirits, and the wind and the prospect of action excited him, and he spent some time with Dandelion Hawkbit Speedwell, pretending to be a cat, and encouraged them to attack him as realistically as they could. Hazel, whose talk with fire somewhat clouded him, recovered as he watched them tussle over the grass and ended by joining in himself, first as the attacker and then a cat, staring and quivering for all the world like the nut hanger tabby. All right. So we're going to have to call it on this because I'm running out of power. So this is part 1 of The Raid. Watership Down audio by little old me, Hua. And we will stop this bad boy at 17 minutes. Hua.